No computer could ever sort that out. So we're never going to have artificial intelligence that's going to do that. This is the only intelligence that's going to sort these kind of problems out. Okay, most systems are both interactively and structurally complex, and you think about an economy, that's obviously the case. The human body is both structurally complex. I cut my wrist, I know it's going to happen. But my mind, that's structurally complex. But my mind, in the way it functions, is interactively complex. All those neurons up there, the synapses, as the electrons flow around. Okay, I'm switching gears. I want to talk, I've given you the context now of what the world is like as I understand it, and as scientists understand it. What about information? How important is information for decision making? I'm going to conclude probably not as important as we think it is. But many of you have heard of the Tofflers, and they've had the third wave, and they talk about humankind going through a wave where, first of all, we had the agricultural revolution. Obviously, there weren't tractors, but 10,000 years ago, people came out of the forest, began to farm, nomadic type peoples began to settle and farm, and it changed the way the world worked. And then about 500 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution, where capital became most important. And their argument is we either are in or are moving into an information age. I guess, as a rough understanding of the way history has gone, this works. I'm not sure if we're in an information age, and if we are, how long we've been in one and what it is. But information certainly is more available, and there's a lot more of it than there was in the past. When I went off to first grade, scientists recognized 2 galaxies in the heaven. Now with the modern science, particularly the Hubble telescope, there are billions of them up there. Last time I saw a count, somebody estimated 20 billion galaxies. So the amount of knowledge that we're collecting is tremendous. If you were to pick up a large metropolitan newspaper, I don't know what's in Austin, but as examples you're familiar with, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, and you read it moderately well. I mean, a couple hours on Sunday afternoon, kept several sections you were interested in, and referred to them during the course of the week. You have the ability to absorb more knowledge than was available to one of our fellow citizens in the era of Thomas Jefferson. What's in that newspaper is more knowledge than Thomas Jefferson could have acquired with all the books that were available some 200 years ago. So information, certainly there's a lot more available. It's of a different quality. But the question is, when did the information age begin? I've heard 70s. Most people talk 80s. I beg to disagree. I think you could go back to the printing press 550 years ago and say that's when it was. But if you look at the technical inventions over the years, we've been in the information age for a long time. So maybe the knee in the curve has come up with information technology provided by computers, but the information age has been there for a long time. Well, how important is information to decision making? And I'm going to refer you to a classic book. If you have any modern interest in military history, this would be interesting to read. It's by an Israeli historian by the name of Martin van Creveld. Martin's a wonderful writer. If you just want to get the ideas he has in this particular book, you just read chapter 1 and chapter 8, because the intervening chapters just explain his ideas. But I'm going to use 2 slides here to give you about a 2 to 3 minute short course on what Martin's talking about. He said if you go back in history, particularly say 5,000 years ago, this map obviously not that old, commanders on the battlefield were fairly certain of what they faced, because you had one army here and you had another army opposing it. And generally somewhere in the center was the commander on each side. That commander could see the disposition of forces. He could see their armaments. He was on the terrain. That was no mystery. He was under the weather. So in terms of what was he not certain about, I can only think of one thing. Was the enemy going to remain on the defense, or would he attack? And if he attacked, would it be with one of the wings? Would it be the center, or some combination of wings and center? So other than that, he was fairly certain. But armies don't remain small, and battlefields don't remain small. And they grow until there's a point where the commander cannot stand on the hill and see all of his forces and all the enemy forces. And we begin what Martin Van Creveld calls a futile quest, a quest to return to that degree of certainty that he had on that hilltop. And so we introduce it with artificial means. And the first is a messenger who runs out to the flanks and carries instructions and brings back information, what is transpiring on that flank. Now, this young messenger comes in and he's garbled the message. What do we do to him? Literally maybe, but figuratively we kill him. He's no longer a messenger for us. And if in the rank structure of those days he was a corporal, the odds are we don't put a corporal back as a messenger. We take a lieutenant. We upgrade. Because we're trying to do one thing. We're trying to improve the quality of the information. You're going to find some familiar themes here. Now, a man running doesn't go that fast. What's the only way to increase the speed of movement in this era? Hint, hint. Put them on horseback. So we go from complete certainty to a great deal of uncertainty in a modern battlefield, and to regain that certainty we have messengers. When the messengers don't perform well enough, we get more qualified messengers. When they don't move quick enough, we put them on horseback. And we go from that to semaphore, to telegraph, to telephones, to radios, to computers, and we wind up in the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force during the war with Iraq in Desert Storm. Only 30 hours of the ground war, only one system, the wide area network they had for their computers, and we find 1.3 million emails were processed in that period of time. The system is dysfunctional. And folks will say, well, sir, General Boomer, who was the commander, didn't want all those emails. Yeah, I say, how many do you think he wanted? I'm not sure my math is right, but I think 1/1000th is 1,300, right? So if he only wanted 1 out of 1,000. Now, he didn't want to read 1,300 emails. I was with him. He was in the back of a command and control vehicle. He was trying to fight 2 ground divisions. He didn't want to read 130. 13 was more like it. Our problem with information, we equate the volume and to some degree the accuracy with making decisions in command and control. All the cognitive psychologists tell us most commanders, most decision makers have 1 or 2 pieces of information that fit a puzzle that they make the decision. The volume of information has nothing to do with it, but that's what we're trying to do. All of our systems are trying to push, it's always bandwidth and, or throughput and speed in our information systems. So this is the futile quest. And as he said, it's like a hole in a donut. You fill in the hole in the donut, and guess what? It's no longer a donut. So if you have a certain battlefield, it's not a modern battlefield. It's probably a parade. That's what it is. Because the modern battlefield, and I would say in business industry, your quote-unquote battlefield is inherently uncertain, chaotic, and unpredictable. Quit trying to change it. Simply accept it with this one basic concept. Accept the world as it is. Don't put that hole in the donut, don't fill it in, and learn to operate in spite of this uncertainty. Well, how do you do that? First of all, you have to understand the process of command and control. What is command and control? When I say command and control, I'm not speaking military. I'm talking about any way you lead an organization through the processes you have, the way you organize your leadership, your headquarters, and the systems you use, hardware and software systems. And